Hey everybody, it's your boy, and today's video is going to be about, well, an emotion. Spite. Spite! Well, what a strange subject for a video, right guys? What could spite possibly do with the general theme of this channel, which is primarily social and political commentary? Well, you see, it's quite important, and is pertinent to a lot of stuff that's been going on for the past couple of years now. But you see, spite is one of the biggest negative emotions you could possibly feel towards someone or something, and in many ways can be a bad motivation as well as sometimes a good motivation to do things of a political or social nature. Famously, in one of Dostoevsky's novels, his first one, Notes from the Underground, spite is one of the biggest themes throughout the entire book. It's spite that influences the main character to talk not only about the subject itself, but also to do horrible things to people and to think about horrible things as well. Most famously, when he befriends a prostitute that he bedded, gets to know her a little bit, and gets her to pour forth her emotions on him, and then finally, near the end, he admits that he did everything purely out of spite. He didn't believe a single word that he said to her because he said he was going to help her and protect her, do this and that. No, he didn't mean a single word. And somewhere in the middle of the novel, in one of his notes, he is discussing spite and how, say for example, God was to prove that he was real to everybody, and he told humanity, or some humans, to do this. Man would actually do the opposite just to spite this God. So, as you can see, spite is an interesting topic, not just to me, but to even some of the big-brained authors that I read. What's it got to do with this channel and the culture war? If any of you have been keeping up with this channel and the stuff that I talk about, you may remember a video about political chameleons that I made, which is essentially about people who constantly change their political beliefs almost at a whim, or sometimes because they're midwits, or they're not very smart, they're just NPCs. They just conform to whatever is the zeitgeist, whatever is in charge. In that video, if I remember correctly, I may have completely missed this out, but I talked about the people who do this purely out of spite. They do this because maybe they've fallen out with people, they have seen a pattern they don't like, or just an individual they don't like, and they decide for whatever reason to completely change their entire political beliefs, the things that made them what they were for sometimes years. And some of you who've been watching me for a long time may remember a certain community that never actually existed that people named the skeptic community, and how that apparently broke apart. That was almost entirely down to spite. Of course, there were people who changed their opinion slowly over time. Those people existed, and that's fine, although they did end up completely burning every single bridge they could possibly burn. There were others who, for whatever reason, decided, you know what, I'm going to betray all these people, even the people that did no wrong to me, because I think that they are to blame for whatever reason. But there were some people who got into drama involving trout and cups of tea who decided that because these people in this community quote-unquote betrayed them, instead of just acknowledging the people who did try to stick up for them, acknowledging that they may have got some things wrong and they need to reevaluate some stuff, no, instead they went to the other side of the culture war just to spite these people. 1 month they're not communists, they're just at most centre-left, maybe centre-right. Then the next thing you know, they're just the complete opposite, and they've fallen lockstep in with the very narratives that they tried to debunk for years. And the most personal and pertinent example that I can think of is not the trout with the cups of tea, it's Was Lee. You may remember him, the Orange, the annoying Orange, as I now call him. He was involved in the drama, but as far as I'm aware, didn't actually do anything wrong, but became like a conduit for a lot of people to attack him, and he made a video to discuss his innocence, which I think pretty much proved that he didn't do anything wrong. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. What's funny is a very particular academic was also in those circles, but seemed to get away with it scot-free. But hey, you know what? He also didn't do anything wrong. But for whatever reason, was decided out of pure spite, because there is no way he suddenly came to these conclusions just one night and changed his entire political perspective. He decided to burn all his bridges, even people like me who defended him publicly, and became a leftist. He basically became a communist and abandoned everything that he'd been known for and all his principles. And you can see that not just on the internet, you can see that in real life. Look what happened with Trump and his administration. There was a lot of stuff that was done to him by the establishment, by the people that are meant to be working with him, purely out of spite because they just didn't like him. It wasn't always ideological, and there wasn't always just vested interests. Sometimes they just did it because they disliked him. The pandemic is a prime example of what they did out of spite. We were all in agreement, even Trump and the media were all in agreement that this was potentially a massive threat, although Trump chose to downplay it to keep people calm and not to have hysteria, whereas the press at first said that it's just a flu, and then decided after actually this might be a problem, they decided to jump on the hysteria bandwagon. And when Trump was coming out with things like you should take this particular drug, we should try and get a vaccine, and things like that, the media were constantly harassing him and attacking him just out of pure spite. It wasn't even ideological, really, if you think about it. There was no real ideological reason to discredit everything he said about the pandemic, because in the end, these people ended up using all his talking points, and the Biden government later on initiated the very same vaccines that he actually got for America. In a situation where thousands, millions of lives are at stake, these people out of pure spite chose to risk those lives just to dunk on the orange man. So what that some information was not provided to people that could have been of importance? So what that they didn't choose to help the president and the government and just people in general by providing good, honest journalism, which they never do anyway, but in this kind of situation it kind of calls for it. No. We don't like this guy. Not just for political reasons, which is one factor among many things to dislike him for, but we dislike him in general nowadays. So we're just going to do everything we can to harm his response to the pandemic as much as we possibly can, because spite. Because we can. And spite is one of the main driving forces behind cancel culture. Because if you think about it, a lot of the people that jump on these bandwagons who cancel people, they don't always do it for political reasons. They don't always do it because they may or may not agree with some wrongdoing that this person may or may not have done. They just don't like them. And so they want to throw them under the bus. They want to join in on the dog pile and to attack them as much as possible purely because they don't like them. This is why you'll see random people appear out of nowhere to attack another person purely because they don't like them. Women will do this to their ex-partners purely out of spite. Oh, you broke up with me. I'm going to ruin your entire life. Oh, you want to have 50% custody of the kids? Well, I don't want that. I'm just going to accuse you of abuse or of rape. They could have a compromise. They could be adults and work this thing out for themselves, even if they don't like each other. No, instead they decide to do that, just to get them out of the picture. And there's nothing we can do about it. Spite is here to stay. It's a part of the human condition. It's part of our emotion. No matter what behavioural psychologists will tell you, like B.F. Skinner, who think that you can psychologically plan a whole society, you can't. Because people will actually do the opposite of what you want them to do, out of spite. And also it's just impossible. You can't plan the human mind. Animals we may be, but our brain is amongst the most complicated of all the animal kingdom. Good luck trying to psychologically plan society. So what can we do? Well, the only thing we can do, be emotionally intelligent and just protect ourselves from these spiteful people, be aware of who they are, and just react to events accordingly. I don't really have any proper advice on that. It's really down to the individual and also the individual situation, because no situation is the same when it comes to spite. If you find yourself to be a victim of cancel culture, just prepare to have all your receipts and everything in order and confront these people if you feel brave enough to do so. That's one thing I guess I could reasonably advise on. Other than that, don't get into utopian ideas that you can somehow stop spite from being such a major player in all these events. Just not going to happen. Acknowledge the reality and then obviously react accordingly, and base a lot of what you want to do around the human condition, because a good knowledge of human nature, the human condition, will go a long way towards achieving our goals. And acknowledging spite, as well as altruism, selfishness, etc., as important emotional factors, is something that will help us in the long run, because it's not just rationality we need to have a good understanding of. So other than that, that's really all I can say about the matter. So until next time, it's been your boy, and I'll see you all later.